We're on the lunch break at day 16 of the Undercover Policing Inquiry, Tranche 2, Phase 2. We've been listening to the third day of evidence of Geoff Sheppard. I'm joined with Carolyn from the Campaign Opposing Police Surveillance, who's been at the hearing all day. She's been taking notes and tweeting whilst I have. What do you think of the evidence so far?
Well, it's quite similar to what we heard from Geoff Sheppard before. I mean, there's things that he obviously doesn't remember very clearly, doesn't recall. We're talking about events from over 30 years ago most of the time. But then there's a few instances where he has recalled very specific, very clear words or phrases used by an undercover officer, for example, or even by himself in a conversation with an undercover officer, and that's been very interesting.
Yeah, he's very clear. He doesn't. He's unwilling to do any sort of guesstimates or oh yeah, I probably was. He's very definite with things he says, which I think is probably very useful for the legal process. He's been asked a lot about. He's been asked in turn about a number of undercover officers who reported on him. Some of whom he barely remembers at all. I mean, he says with Mike Chitty, who claimed to be a friend of his, that he only knows that he ever met him because he knows he gave him a lift once because he's seen the photograph.
Yeah, and we've heard now of a series of undercover officers that didn't just report on him, but in their post-deployment debriefs, for example, claimed to be a firm friend, or claimed to have broken through the suspicious ALF activists and formed friendships and trusting friendships, I think was the phrase, with people like Geoff Sheppard. And it's obvious that he was a known ALF activist because he'd been to prison for taking part in actions. And they obviously thought it boosted their credibility in the police to have claimed to have won his trust. And he's an easy name to bandy around. Yeah, I mean, that one you mentioned then, that was Andy Coles, wasn't it? Who we've seen, this does seem to be like a really common thing. It's almost like you it's like little badges that you can kind of claim within the SDS that, I knew this person, and it's the names of people who've obviously got a profile already. Yeah. He obviously does, he knew Matt Rayner, or HM1, cover name Matt Rayner, not HM91, which for some reason, John Wilson. David Barr made quite a few mistakes today.
John Warrington.
Sorry, John Warrington. Sorry, I made a mistake. Yeah, sorry. The legal counsel for the inquiry, the inquiry's own barrister, made a number of weird mistakes today. Like he kept reading the wrong numbers for documents, and it's really annoying if you're trying to follow this from somewhere else when that happens, because you don't even have a typed transcript appearing on the screen in front of you. It makes it really, really hard to follow exactly what's being said and what's being referred to.
Yeah, but it was it's really frustrating. But it was just on the HM1 cover name Matt Rayner, almost certainly called Matt. We don't know what his real name is, despite the fact that it's established he deceived a woman into an intimate relationship, which a long time ago John Mitting said that he would name and give the full names of anybody who did that deception. But yeah, we've got the Geoff Sheppard talking about being involved in some very serious direct action where basically HM1 was the driver to and from the majority of these events. Yeah,
he said every single action that he ever undertook with Matt Rayner was conducted as a direct action against places, buildings involved in animal experimentation. He said himself he was fixated on the subject of animal experimentation at the time. He was really committed to anti-vivisection campaigning, and he'd done all the leafleting, he'd done all the other forms of campaigning as well, but chose to do the direct action as well.
Yeah, it's Geoff Sheppard is somebody who was obviously very driven and was quite willing to, despite the fact that he'd already had a custodial sentence for his involvement in the Debenham stuff, was quite willing to get involved again with more direct action. One of the things that we heard not long before the break was about how Matt Rayner told Geoff that if Geoff wanted to shoot a vivisector, he would drive him to do it, which... I mean, I'm guessing we're going to hear more about that this afternoon, but, suggests a level of agent provocateur activity that we haven't heard before.
Yeah, I mean, it's unheard of from any other case of any other undercover officers so far. That's, quite an extreme step and not something that the ALF would have ever done.
No, completely goes against all the aims and principles of the Animal Liberation Front. The fact that we've got an undercover police officer suggesting that somebody from the ALF, who's never, the ALF has never taken any action against any individuals, any human beings, or any animals, humans, including humans, to do that is quite a step, right?
Yeah, because as I'm sure Geoff himself said last time, humans are animals too.
Yeah. I'm sure there's lots more to come this afternoon. Even though it's day 3 of Geoff's questioning, there's still a huge amount of detail we haven't got to yet. I get the impression this might be a late finish. Anything else you want to add about Geoff?
No, I think it's going to be interesting hearing what he's going to say this afternoon, because it felt really frustrating. The last times he gave evidence, it was 2 half days, and it just ended after hearing about Bob Lambert. And it's really worthwhile to hear about the other officers. I know that a lot of them he can't remember even meeting them, but I think with Matt Rayner there is still a lot that's going to come out this afternoon.
Yep, given that it's probably going to be a late finish and we haven't got long for lunch, and I got up at 3:30 this morning because of problems with the train, we're going to call it stop there. We'll do another little video during the break in the afternoon, and I'll continue to tweet on the during the hearings itself, as will Carolyn, under the Cops campaign Twitter handle. There will be a Twitter Spaces tonight at 7 p.m. I'll definitely start it. I might fall asleep before it finishes, but please join us if you can. Cheers.